And we're live. Welcome to the Racing Roots chat with Hamm and John Bryan. And we're in the WAME studio in downtown Statesville, North Carolina, right in the center of town, 101 South Center Street, the Randy Marion studio. And I got John Bryan with me as our guest today. And it's such a pleasure to have you, big guy. It's been a while since, it's been probably a year since I saw you, but you know, we got a lot of history together, and we'll go back, we'll talk about that shortly. But how was your trip up here?
It was good. It was good. Not far at all from Mooresville.
Right. Yes. Oh. And so I got my phone cranked up here apparently. So so we got Rachel Rodman's on, Dickie Dennis. I was telling John about Dickie Dennis was the original fence climber and climbed a fence in 2014 at Richmond International Speedway. And we might have a surprise call here in just a little bit. But we got Rachel on and Kellen Robinson, and Scott Trevison's on with us.
Oh, boy.
Yes, that should be a good time.
Scotty.
So he's down in Sanibel Island. Yeah.
Roughing it, I'm sure.
I'll tell you what, I said this last week too. We went and hung out with Scott for a week and went out on the boat, and I went 6 miles out in the water. And that's not the first I've ever been, but on a boat like that, it was on his C-Tunes boat. But I had such an amazing time. I don't usually use that word, but that was such a great vacation.
That's a big word.
Amazing.
Amazing.
Two or three syllables, but still.
Yeah, I still haven't been able to see Scott's boat. I'm looking forward to getting on it someday.
Yeah, you've seen pictures of it, right? The C-Tunes.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have.
Yeah. All right, so what have you been up to, man? You got your own business.
I do. My own landscaping business. Life after racing.
Same with me.
Absolutely. There you go, man.
We got that another thing in common. That's actually what helped propel me out of NASCAR, I guess you could say, when I was ready.
Right.
But we worked at the dealership together.
Sure.
Back in '94.
Yeah.
And then you got the call from Ricky Rudd to come full time.
Right. When he started his own team. Yep. And then we both were jackmen. It was funny. We both worked in a dealership. Then we both became jackmen. And then you eventually came and worked for Doug, which I worked for Robert and Doug. So it's kind of like we've been in the same
circle.
Same circle, same path the whole time, you know?
Yes.
So.
Yeah, because, I mean, when I was in college, and this was before I knew you, I knew I wanted to get into NASCAR. But I wasn't necessarily sure that I was going to be a jackman. I just knew I wanted to get in. I didn't care if it was a mechanic, an engine builder, or what. So my path going through college, which was pre-Reed Oldsmobile, it was Galvin Oldsmobile days, working down off South Boulevard, my goal was to get into NASCAR. So when I met you over at Reed Oldsmobile, and you were a jackman, I was like, you know what, that's what I want to do. So then I just was stuck with it, and eventually it happened. But I remember your last day at work. I remember when you got the call from Ricky Rudd to come work in his parts department. And I remember going and buying you a Ricky Rudd car.
Okay.
I spent like $20 hard-earned dollars on his car. And you probably still don't have. You probably sold it for $30 or something.
I probably have it still somewhere. Yes. I keep about everything, so I probably still have it.
But it was one of the bigger cars. It was in the box. So
okay.
I mean, if you're not using it, I'll take it back.
I'll just take it back.
Yes.
That's a collector's item now. I ain't giving it back.
I was like, you know what? I'm proud of him. He's doing what I want to do, and I'm going to go buy him something. So that's what I decided was appropriate.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yes.
I appreciate that.
In hindsight.
That was my kickoff present.
Yeah, it was. And I think I changed oil in your car or something, but you paid for that. So that's another story. Well, the other thing I did, I gave you a souvenir magazine that had Ricky Rudd article about Ricky in it.
Yep, I do remember that. That was the Winston Cup scene.
It was something like
that.
Yeah, I think it was a actual souvenir magazine that you get when you go to a race at either Charlotte, Darlington, Rockingham. Those were the ones I collected in Wilkesboro. I collected those souvenir
I probably
magazines.
still have that program.
You probably do.
I do. I keep a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
I still have it.
Yeah. So, yeah, even that. Oh, that's all good too. So, who was your favorite driver to work for?
Ooh,
and you probably should start out telling your background though.
Oh wow. Background wise, I came from working in the parts department, like you said, always working in and around cars, and that's kind of how I came into racing. Was when Ricky started his own team when he left Hendrick, he needed somebody to do the parts, put the brake pads on the shelf and all the other stuff. And that's kind of where I fell into the job full time, because there were so many people back then that had part-time jobs. I'm sure like the crew members now, they have other jobs or that's all they do. They don't really work in the shop on the cars. They just come to the racetrack, pit the car, and then they go home. Do
Weekend warriors.
Right. I mean, it seems like there used to be not so many of them back then. I remember when I started at Robert Yates, I was employee number 36. I'll never forget that because everybody had an employee number, and I was the 36th employee, and we had 2 cars at that time. We had 2 teams, but that was just full-time people. Now we had a slew of guys that came to the racetrack and helped pit support-wise and stuff like that. But yeah, that's how I started. Was I came in full time as a parts guy.
Yeah, because back then that's the way. I mean, you had weekend guys that come in too back then, but not like they do right now.
No, I mean like back when when I came to Roberts, like Joey Knuckles, he worked in the shop. He handled all the front suspension, but he also changed front tires. So he was there if there was a problem. And the car had to come in and it was wrecked in the front. Joey already knew what was going on with the car. He had put everything together, so it was just back then it was kind of like, well, I mean, we should make him the front tire changer.
Right.
And the guy that did the rear suspension, he usually was either the jack man or he was the rear tire changer.
Yeah.
Raymond Fox was our car chief and he changed rear tires.
Right.
So everybody kind of did something in the shop, but you also pitted the car because we didn't have that many people, to do all those jobs. And now you see you've got a whole pit crew and none of them, work at the shop anymore.
Right. Yeah.
So.
They're like professional herd, and a lot of them are just college athletes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Guys that played baseball for a while and got out of it or never really made a long career of it in football or something like that. And then they come into the NASCAR. And
we were the high school athletes. Pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, I literally remember guys drinking beer and changing tires. Like, here, hold my beer kind of deal. I really do. I remember those days when Winston was a proud sponsor, put the cigarette on the wall, with it still burning, go change tires, come back, get the cigarette. Those are the good old days.
Yes. Fill up your gas cans with a cigarette in your mouth.
Exactly.
So you went to Independence, is that right?
I did. I went to Independence High School.
Because I went to Harding.
Oh, the Rams. Weren't y'all the Rams?
Yeah, we were.
Yeah.
And so there's another connection because my high school football coach, Tommy Knotts, went on to coach at Independence.
Sure did.
Yeah.
Sure did. Won a lot of championships at Independence too. But I was already gone.
Right.
Unfortunately, I graduated a few years ago, so he was still young when I graduated. I think he was just getting out of college.
He was tough.
Yeah.
So did you hear us talking about you last week? Did you get to watch the video yet?
I did not.
Okay, you need to go back and watch it.
So I'm sure Joey Knuckles. I can only imagine some of the stuff that he.
Yeah.
I hope he kept it.
It was good.
PG-13.
Yeah, he did.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, he was telling all kinds of lies, talking about how great a guy you were, and I said,
yeah, well, he was lying. I owe him one.
I'm just kidding. That was great talking to him. It's been a while since since I talked to him, really, except for anything but working on a gear for me or something like that. But just to hear all the good stories and stuff, it was great. So your background, all right. So your first time in racing. All right, so let's go all the way back to, let's say, your connection. I guess Rob Moroso.
Oh my goodness, man. Yeah. Starting all the way back to them. My sister had met Rob Moroso. That for those of the people that don't know Rob, he was a Winston Cup driver. He was an up and coming driver and got killed in 1990 in a car wreck on 150. My sister was in the car with him, so that's kind of how I got introduced to the whole racing world. And anybody out there that's been in racing, once you're in there, your family. It doesn't really matter what race team you go to; it's still all the same. Was all still the same people. So that's kind of how I got into it. I helped out, just kind of getting, I guess, just figuring out what the racing was all about. Just helping out in the pits. I didn't go over the wall. I just helped out with tires, rolling tires around, getting the new tires, the new sets up on the wall after the the pits. So I didn't really go over the wall for a few years, when I first got into it. And then my first job actually jacking a race car was at Bobby Allison Motorsports. I jacked Hut Strickland's car, the number 12. Actually, it was a Buick at the time, a Buick Regal. And then we switched to Ford Thunderbirds.
Okay.
And then they let Hut go, and Jimmy Spencer came in, Mr. Excitement. And he was a hoot. But going back to answer the question about my favorite driver, I've got a lot of favorite drivers because they all have their own unique personality to them and their stories. Like I've got great memories of Ernie Irvin, and he was a totally different driver than Ricky Rudd. Ernie Irvin was real hard on the brakes, drove the car real hard into the corner, used the brakes to steer it through the corner, where Rudd was more of a take care of your, equipment type deal, be there at the end. Yeah. So, and then you have Kenny Irwin that came in, for a couple of years and drove for us, and then actually went over to the 42 car.
Right, yes.
Where you were, right?
Yeah, I was building his engines.
Yeah, the Bell South Mobility car.
Yeah.
I never really had we never really had a chance to spend a lot of time with Kenny. It was weird. He was there and gone. He came at the end of the 97 season and went to Japan with us and raced over in Japan. That was his first race with us because Ernie had left and gone to the Skittles car, number 36 Skittles car, MBV2 Motorsports.
Yeah, we were always in the garage beside Ernie in that Skittles car pretty much, which meant we were pretty close in the points with him. But I went to Japan in 96 and 98. I was scheduled to go in 97, but the Jackman I guess Wally Dallenbach was our driver for that car that they were taking. The first year was with Robbie Gordon, and the last year was with Sterling, and then in between it was Wally Dallenbach. But their Jackman said he really wanted to go, so I was like, hey, you have it, because I didn't want to go back after the first time, but I ended up going back again. So, but Scott Trevison asked about, being one of the few left-handed Jackmen.
Oh yeah, at the time when I came into racing, Jeff Clark, a lot of people know that name. Oh, yeah. Big Jeff. He was the only, as far as I knew, the only left-handed Jackman on the circuit in the Cup Series, and of course I was left-handed, and I actually learned from Jeff. It was funny because I was friends with Jeff's younger brother, Bryan, and we hung out. And,
y'all did all the time.
Oh, Lord. That's a whole nother show.
We would always be sitting on the bus waiting. Where are them boys at? We're like ready to go.
Like I said, that's a whole nother show right there. That's a whole nother person in me going to Robert Yates. He actually told Larry, if there was someone that I was going to put in my spot, jack the car the same way on the same side of the jack, where everybody, it would be me. And so I have a lot to owe, Jeff to get me over there. So
that's cool. Jeff, he's over at Roush Yates Engines now still, doing good over there. Great guy. Yep. He was always the one that, we had our trainer, Hank Alston Moore. I know you know him. And he was, I was a jack man just like Jeff Clark, but I kind of wanted to be like Jeff Clark. And he was always driving that, hey, Jeff does this and Jeff does it. So that was like he was like the guy that was the, what do you call it? He
was a poster child.
Yes.
I mean, you wanted to be Jeff Clark. Everybody wanted to be 6'6" and 240 pounds. I mean, you could jack a car with one hand. It was actually crazy.
Yeah.
And you're right. I mean, I learned a lot about how to get around a race car. At the time they were setting the right front tire out at the front, and we could leave it.
Yeah.
So the jackman actually had to step over the tire or step on it, or Jeff was so tall, he just stepped over it. He didn't have to step up on it and over it.
Right.
So there was a lot of things that I learned from Jeff, watching him jack race cars.
Yeah. So whenever they would throw the tires off towards the jackman, or you can throw it to the front. It just depended on what team you were with. And I would always get my thumb get jammed like crazy all the time. From the tires.
Catching the tire?
Yes. So I still, every once in a while when I jam it, I'm like, ow, that hurts so bad. Scott says, ask him about his funniest Sterling Marlin story. I don't know if you were around Sterling that much, though, were you? Or who wasn't, right?
Oh, man, my funniest Sterling Marlin story is probably, he's got to be talking about Japan. Yeah, somehow or another, I got in a taxi cab with Sterling Marlin and Vic Irvin, Ernie Irvin's dad,
Yeah.
and Ernie Irvin,
Yeah.
and Terry Thronberg, which was Ernie's spotter at the time. I have no idea how I got in that car.
Yeah.
And we wound up at a club in Japan. And that was, you know, as country as Sterling is, it was an experience. It just was everything. He took it all in. I mean, from start to finish. Because, of course, all of us, you know, country boys, we had never seen anything like that over there. And so everything was just a, like, oh, my gosh, kind of moment, you know, a wow moment. But Sterling's a good guy. He's, you know, Scott, I know, has a special relationship with Sterling and has for a very long time, you know, working with Coors and all of that back then. But yeah, that's one of my funny Sterling Marlin stories.
I was in a car in Japan with Richard Bostic. And, you know, he was
he drove the truck, didn't
right,
he? Yeah.
Yes, and he was a character. He would grab the CB mics that they had in the cars, and he would just we would be riding down the road with the cab driver. The cab driver didn't know what we were saying. We had to have translators and all. And he's just sitting there just saying all kinds of stuff that I'm not going to repeat. But it was like, yeah, if you can imagine. It was so funny, though.
Oh,
I've actually got a video of when I went to Japan. I took my camcorder with me in '96, and it's on my YouTube channel. So check it out. DHAM, of course, which what you're on right here. And I think it was the first video I ever put on YouTube.
Wow,
And
I need to see that.
Yep. And if you can't find it, just go DHAM and then do a search. Go 96 Japan trip, and it'll pop up there. And it'll bring back some memories because I took that thing everywhere we went, even sitting in a Japanese restaurant, sushi restaurant, and I had Robbie Gordon sitting across from me, Wally Dallenbach sitting beside me, and the other guys in the room. And Robbie was over there. They were in a Chinese. I couldn't stand the stuff. It was what do you call it? Raw Chinese Japanese. I'm sorry, did I say Chinese?
Sushi?
Okay, sushi. Oh, gosh. Yes, sushi in Japan. And it was bad. So Robbie and Wally were like in a eating competition with it. And then Robbie actually, turns out he wasn't such a sushi connoisseur that he thought he was because he was spitting it out. And I mean, there was long spit trails coming down out of his mouth. And Wally was like, are you going to eat those heads? Because we had shrimp and the eyeballs are looking up at you. I'm like, I'm not eating those. So he would just grab them and start eating them. So he's a connoisseur of sushi.
Man, I don't know if I could eat the shrimp heads.
Yeah. So anyway, that's but that was interesting times. Let's see if we got any more questions.
David,
Yes.
Rachel wants to ask John what he misses most for working with NASCAR.
Rachel's wondering what you miss the most from working with NASCAR.
I'd have to definitely say the people. You know, it's not so I don't miss the grind, all the traveling, you know, and stuff that we used to have to do. It's the people. I definitely miss the people.
Yeah, I would second that.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that I still have relationships with now that I made friendships back then. I haven't been in racing for 16 years, and I still, you know, have relationships with them and do things with them and stuff. So it would definitely be the people that I miss.
So a lot of the time we were on the Race Day Express most of the time. And I know you went on to do it even after my last year was in 2001 when that was actually in the Busch Series. But so I was ready to be done with it after going for 7 years, basically.
Sure.
But, you know, I haven't seen a lot of the guys since then, but we traveled with all the Roush guys, Robert Yates Racing,
Right.
Sabco, the guys from Stewart, Virginia, Wood Brothers Racing,
Ganassi.
Ganassi, and also the guys, the Morgan McClure.
Yeah, some of them would fight. Yeah.
So, you know, it was kind of like we had, I don't know how many people we had on the plane, 100 people or something like that.
It's like 160 something people.
Yeah. So we got to know a lot of it. It's kind of like having a big family.
That's exactly what it was. It was we went to town and put on a show.
Yes.
It was, you know, that's what it was. We went on and we were the entertainment. We put on the show and then we took our suits off and we got back on the plane and we flew back home. I mean, and you just get used to doing that week in and week out, and you just get into, I mean, everybody's making great money. So you kind of, you know, don't really look at the hours that you're working, you know, the hours that you're up. There was times that I was up 21 hours, 22 hours, from the time I got up, and then the time I got to the racetrack, and then the race started at 12:30. I'd already been up 10 hours.
Yeah,
And
right.
then now we have to start jacking the race cars.
I know.
You know what I mean? And so
Oh, yeah.
there were some days that I just drug myself to the bus to get on the bus to leave, the racetrack.
Oh yeah. So when we would get to the Charlotte airport at like before 5 o'clock, because it's like boarding was 5 a.m. So if you're living, in Statesville, Mooresville, whatever, you drive to the shop, you get the bus, and then you get everybody there, and then you drive down. You're talking about getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
It's brutal. It was brutal.
Yeah, every week. And then by the time you get home, some tracks, Michigan, you're sitting there for 2 hours trying to get out of the infield.
Yeah.
I know they ended up changing that at some point, but
And it totally takes away your Saturday too, because you have to get in bed at 7:30, 8 o'clock. So it's not like you're going to do much on Saturday either.
Yeah, because if you don't, you're going to be paying for it on Sunday.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then if you go to Phoenix, you got to be there, a day early or so.
And the Phoenix, the West Coast trips are what really took it out of me. I don't know what anybody else did, but it would literally take me all day Monday and Tuesday to get over. Getting back, because we would fly back. At 11 o'clock, 9 o'clock sometimes on Sunday night out there, and it was already 12:30 or 1, so we'd get home at 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and then sometimes I couldn't even keep track of time.
I always tell people I felt like a zombie until Wednesday. Much,
absolutely.
And then I had maybe been a little dehydrated and loading up with some beer after the race to make the trip, kind of a little more enjoyable, because you're sitting on an airplane, you're taxiing and waiting and waiting.
Well, the stress too.
Yeah, that too.
The stress. I mean, a lot of people didn't realize there was a lot of stress to it too. But
oh yeah, you're sitting there and you gotta perform, and
it is a performance sport. It's a young man's sport. There's no way in the world I could jack a race car right now.
If you if you had any kind of a mishap or whatever, you could cost the team. You could cost $50,000 or whatever. You cost a win, cost a trophy, and then you got to go back to the shop and face everybody there and say, "Yeah, I messed up."
And hear it there.
What can I say?
Oh, absolutely.
I know my first time. Let's say I was very adamant on not messing up, but my first time as a jackman at Wilkesboro, I didn't cut the stop off the left side, so my jack wouldn't go under the left side of the car. So I come around. I didn't know we were on TV at the time, but there is video on YouTube, and I'm like, I hit my thing. I said, it won't go up because, you're under pressure. And what else was I going to say? But I'm just hitting the jack, just hits the stop. From then on, all the years after that, I cut that stop off. So I didn't want to have that issue. Yes, you do. And you always set the chains where if you jacking.
Oh, yeah.
And for whatever reason on my team, they always set them long. So it was more work for me. Yes.
Well, they just wanted more body roll, I guess, in the corner. They didn't want to pick the tire.
Yeah. But I saw other teams, and it was like they didn't have to jack more than one time. Of course, there was that one pump jack, but I used that for a little while.
That only Jeff Clark could use for a while. That would really put a lot of strain on your back. Yeah. And on your shoulders.
For sure. Let's see. Rachel or Kellen Robinson says he was saying that these are the untold stories of the pit crew. I salute you guys. All make it happen. Yes, thank you very much. We do have we got a lot of stories. We got a lot more untold stories.
Oh boy, just depends on what streets you want to go down.
That's true. Oh yeah, the accident in 2003, the pit road accident. Is that the one that made everybody have to start wearing helmets?
No, that was 2001.
The one before that.
2003, I had a helmet on.
Yeah, you've been involved in a couple of those.
Yeah, I've been hit twice. I've had two 15-minute things of fame, I guess you could say.
So you basically could have saved your own life, kind of.
I guess, yeah. Because the way I landed, I landed on my head in 2003, and I had a helmet on it. It was a blessing. I would have been in bad shape.
That's was that the pictures I was just showing you, or is that the one?
No, that was 2001. That was at Homestead, Florida, right there. Yeah.
And you and Bobby Burrell were involved in that.
Mm-hmm. And Kevin Hall. Kevin Hall. It's funny, looking back at it now, is that all three means of you being able to get medical attention were all, Bobby went in the helicopter, I went in the ambulance, and Kevin Hall went in the golf cart.
Oh.
So all 3 different ways you could go to the infield care or the hospital or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we were taken care of. You know,
Yes.
So
Well, you remember, I believe it was 1990, Mike Rich.
91.
91, okay.
Mike Rich at Atlanta.
Yeah, Atlanta, yes. The tire changer for Bill Elliott.
Yeah, Ricky Rudd's the one that hit him.
I remember watching that.
Ricky Rudd almost quit racing right then.
Okay.
He almost, from what I was told, his wife had a lot to do. Linda had a lot to do with him, you know, coming back. He didn't want to race anymore after that. Which, you know, just like Dale when he hit me in 03, he didn't want to race anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he wanted to stop, and you know.
Yeah.
We were like, you can't do that. You know, you got to like keep going. There's big sponsors. You know, even though we weren't really running that good that day, but
he just was mad because he locked the brakes up, I guess.
mm-hmm. Well, see what happened was DJ thought that there were like 50 pits on pit road because of the IndyCar and Formula One and all that. And he thought that they had blocked off like the first 7 pits. So he thought he had a little bit of time when he come across the entrance to pit road to be able to get to the pits, but he didn't realize it was right there. I mean, we were the very first stall. And it would have been very, very hard to make it into that stall if he would have been going the speed limit, you know, let alone not going the speed limit. So.
Yeah, yes.
That one hurt the worst. I saw that one coming. I never saw the one at Homestead coming. I never even knew what happened. But the one at the Brickyard, I saw. I had already gone all the way out, and I saw the car turn. And when I saw, you know, you can see the numbers on the side of the car. Mm-hmm. As a pit crew guy, you're like, this is not what we're supposed to be seeing. And I knew that I was going to try to make it back
to jump over the front corner of the car or something like that. But I never, even doing in the Busch Series and the Winston West and all that stuff, I never had any. I never got hit. So
you're lucky.
Fortunate, yeah.
I didn't. If I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't want to get hit. It wasn't any fun. It didn't.
Yeah.
It didn't do anything for me. I mean, you know, it was what it was. But I tell people all the time that, you know, that was part of the reason why I did it. It was kind of dangerous, and you know, I signed up for that class. I knew that there would always be a chance that you could get hit.
Right.
You know, you're the very first person out in front of the car. You know, there's something always that could happen. So I was actually very fortunate. I only got hit twice. It was a lot of times when, you know, when I pitted, there used to be 8 guys. You know, you used to have the gas catch man, you used to have the windshield guy, you used to have all these people.
Yeah.
You know, now you got 5 guys. We used to have 3 more people, so you had more bodies to get around, more people to work around.
Yeah.
But they really have. They've slimmed the pits down a lot.
Yeah, they would come to the NASCAR officials would come by and say, "Okay, you can have the extra guy to go over and hand in the drink
and service the driver."
Yeah.
That's what they would say. Service the driver.
Yes.
You know, peel off the strip on the windshield and give him a water or something. Yeah.
Otherwise, we had to do it.
Absolutely.
I mean,
I've had to do it.
Jack the car up, turn around, grab the water, slide it in the window.
I've had to do the windshield
or
strip.
Pull the windshield
hey
out.
man, he's going to be fixing the front end. You get the, you know, and so.
Or put a half a round of wedge in or something on.
Whatever you got to do. I never did. I was never. They never let me do wedge. I got too excited on the wedge. I never could get the thing down in the hole. I was too.
Well, what we did was we had the tire carrier come and he would put the wrench
and leave it in there for you.
And leave it in, and then I would just reach up there and turn it, and then take it and throw it. Yes, try not to hit anybody in the head, but you know me, I'd be like. So Scott says, I thought you were just checking the tape on the front end.
Scott.
Well, you know, that was a little bit risky, but you still see that where they reach down and pull the tape off, whatever, but usually, yeah, it is what it is. And, you know, Kyle used to be bad about taking off on the pit. When I would drop the jack and it would drop hard, and then he would just hammer down. He was already on the chip whenever I'd let the jack down. So he would fishtail out of there, and I'd have to either jump over the wall or get back out of the way. Yeah. And then lug nuts are flying at you.
Yeah, he got the tires warmed up real quick.
Yes, he did.
We always used to think, golly, he's doing a freaking John Force out of the pits.
Yeah. That one time at Charlotte, well, there's many times, but the one time
his axles, didn't he?
Yeah, NASCAR was penalizing him, and then he come in, and then he finally just did it. Like the last time, I think we changed the gear transmission. I think it was transmission. And then we went back out, but it turns out he had bent a valve, dropped a valve because he had spun it so fast. And, yeah, it was crazy.
I do remember that, though, when he when he broke his axles.
Yes. He was good at that. So Rachel says, what advice would you both give to a new jackman? Don't do it. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, don't do it. Oh, man.
Take care of your body. Be in good shape.
Yeah, definitely take care of yourself. That's one thing that I don't do now compared to when I was in racing. I really watched what I ate. We worked out all the time. If somebody was wanting to be a jackman, they're one of the most sought after people on the pit crew now, because they're basically a jackman / tire carrier.
Right.
You got to jack the car up. You got to index the right front tire. Then you got to come around and jack the left front up and put the left rear on. So I never thought in a million years a jackman would do that, have basically 2 jobs. Yeah. So he's one of the highest paid, on the pit crew right now.
I used to like to, if the front guy was a little bit behind, I could drop the jack, go ahead, I would actually ease it down because the rear guy's already around. I just ease it down, run around the tire changer, and as soon as he come around and hit the lug nuts, I would jump in there and pull it off. That way he didn't have to set the gun down, grab the tire. That would kind of make it up, and it seemed like that would make up some time. Well, it always did. It seemed like so.
We always had I always felt like your fastest tire changer needed to be the one in the back. He was chasing the car.
Yes, he was.
He was chasing the car. He was behind already a couple of lug nuts before the car even stopped. Yeah.
And he was getting gas dumped on him half the time.
Well, he had to work around everybody.
Yeah.
The front tire changer could come out. He could sling his hose up on the hood and then flip it down. He had all that time to make everything perfect, where the rear tire changer, he's following the car. Yeah. He's running. He drops that hose as he's running to the car. And I think that needed to be – I think that was your baddest person on the pit crew was your rear tire changer. Yeah.
True that. Usually a shorter guy with quick feet. Typically.
Oh yeah.
And on the front, we had on our pit crew, we had Big Country, but he was like 6'3", 4, 5.
That was Bill Miller.
Yeah, Bill Miller. Yeah, he would change tires with one leg up and the other down on his knee, kind of.
Yeah. So Bill Miller changed tires at Bobby Allison Motorsports with me on the 12 car.
Okay, I didn't realize he was with you.
And he also changed
time.
with Ricky Rudd's.
Oh, okay.
On the 10 car.
Oh, that's the connection with Randy Usher also, because he was at the 10 car.
And Jim Klinkskill. You remember Jim Klinkskill? He used to work for Quaker State. Yeah. Quaker State car when Kenny Bernstein owned it. Yeah. Brett Bodine drove it.
Yeah. How about that? So Jimmy Newling says, who is your hero in racing?
Jimmy Newling's my hero in racing.
There you go. Maybe he knew you were going to say that about him.
Great fabricator, Jimmy Newling. He was one of our fabricators at Robert Yates Racing.
Yeah, he says great times with you at RYR.
Absolutely. Some great times with all those people there.
That's one thing. There was just a bunch of good guys there, and I actually got an email from Doug Yates today. I stopped by to see the guys last Friday over at Rouse Yates Engines, but they were just like frantically busy, and I sent one of my friends a text, and he didn't get back to me until I just like, you know what, I'm just going to get out of here because everybody was running around. Saw a couple guys in the parking lot, but I didn't get to see Doug. I went up to Chick-fil-A, come back down the road, and then he was getting in his truck, and then he got behind me, and I just waved like that, So I sent him an email about this whatever. It's a kind of a business thing. Well, it's not really my business, but it's a new engine that someone's come out with. So he just sent me a text back, and he said he's been watching me on the radio, and he says I'm a natural. So I was like, oh, that's cool.
Doug Yates said you're a natural?
Yeah, man.
That's the highest compliment you can get.
Yeah. I thought it was cool.
Doug's a tough cookie, man.
Yeah.
Doug's a tough cookie. He's a great guy, but he demands excellence, that's a given. Look what he's done.
Oh yeah, he's doing great. He said he missed hanging out with me, but he's been listening to me on my radio show, and he said it's great. Thanks for all your RYRE love, RYRE love. He said you're a natural. So
yeah, those are some of the working with all the guys at Robert Yates where we had a special unit. We really did. All the guys got along. We had a lot of fun, and we leaned on each other when times got bad, when we weren't winning races. I remember the 28 car went 4 years without winning a race, and we got asked, every weekend, you guys are going to win this weekend. I mean, what's going on with the 28? I mean, the 28 Texaco car was when I went to Robert Yates, that was one of the premier cars in the garage. I mean, it was either the 3-car, the 3-car of Dale, or the 18 car of Bobby Labonte at the time. Tony Stewart hadn't even came around yet, or you worked for the 28 car. And so when I got an opportunity to come to Roberts, I was like, man, I have made it. You know, I'm putting the blinders on. I'm not going to no other team. I'm not talking to no other team at the racetrack. Yeah. And we just had a special group. We got very lucky. I think all of us did. We got lucky that we all were put together, and there was no egos, and we just all got along and had a really good time. It was a lot of fun. It was some of the best times of my life was working at Roberts. Yeah,
Dickie Dennis says that was his favorite car, the number 28 car.
Yeah.
So when I got the call, Joe Goodman called me and asked me, okay, so I built Chevrolets. I built that from 95 till 2000. Then I went to Bill Davis.
You went to Bill Davis? I didn't know that.
I was there for 2 years.
Who was driving, Ward?
It was, Ward.
Really?
So when he won in 2002, he won the Daytona 500. I got a ring for that.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Yep. And then I got a call from Joe Goodman over at Robert Yates, and then I went and interviewed with Doug, and Doug knew me from the racetrack, of course, all those years. But I never thought I was going to go work for Ford. I just thought, that's the dark side kind of thing, or just different. It wasn't Chevrolet and all that. So when I ended up being there 16 years. I wish I would have went sooner. I wish I would have got to Robert Yates Racing sooner. I was there for the last year of Robert Yates Racing, or a year or two. And then I actually built the engines for Robert Yates Racing. Me and Nick Ramey were building for Robert Yates.
Where you worked down at Doug's and his operation he's got down there in Rolling Hills Drive, in Mooresville.
Oh, yeah.
When I came to work in 96, we had the engine shop. We were right there at Marita Bread. We were right off Berkshire Freeway.
Yeah.
And you could see then what Doug has now. He was in 96. He was making those adjustments, and he was making those strides and moving things and doing it the way he wanted it, because he saw what he has now. He saw that's what he wanted, but he knew that he wasn't going to get it right there at Marita Bread. He only had to work. He could only work with what he had, But he always was. I always look at Doug just like Robert. Robert was funny sometimes to talk to, because Robert was always about 3 or 4 steps ahead of you in his thinking. Like, he was already, when you talk to him, that's why he would talk about one thing and then go into another thing, because he was just so far ahead of you in his thinking. Yeah. And that's how Doug is. Doug's like 2 steps ahead, and when the fuel injection came out. I can almost tell you that Doug Yates was working on that long before they ever, went to fuel. He probably had a whim one day, never heard anything from anybody from NASCAR, just said, hey, you know what, this is going to go fuel injection one day. We need to start, just looking at this and designing and stuff, and boom, and, he's got it mastered. The Fords are running incredible this year.
Yeah.
I mean, they're running, better than I've ever seen the Fords really run.
Well, and I can tell you another thing, those cars that they're working on, the engines they're working on for the Le Mans program over there, the GT40s and all that, those cars, those engines are probably the most likely the future of NASCAR. The double overhead cams and all that, and they're already deep into those, and I can see that happen. See, Doug's already been all over that.
And there's people I can look at, while we're sitting there talking about Doug, there's people that when we go to gatherings with them and stuff like that, and I still get invited to a lot of the stuff, which I'm humbled by that, Yeah. But you can see, you got Eric Curley, you've got, Jeremy Anderson. You've got a lot of people that have been there a long time.
Their first jobs.
Yeah, and if they were getting mistreated and they weren't, making the money they made. I mean, Jeremy Anderson came as a kid. Yeah. Now he's a family man. And he did all of that under Doug.
Right.
And so, if nothing else, Doug should feel pretty proud about that, because he's built something that, just didn't go away when Robert sold his team. Doug still had a vision, was like, I'm still going to keep digging and doing this. And so there's a lot to be said about. I wish Doug would actually start his own team.
Oh yeah, we talked about that
start his own team.
Yeah,
have it DYR.
Right. Yeah, we were kind of hoping that he would at one point.
He
but
could
didn't
do
happen.
it. I just don't think he wants double headaches because
Right.
he has enough of them as it is.
He's got his young family too. You know, he actually fired Jeremy Anderson one time,
Really?
but I think it just taught Jeremy a lesson. You know?
Okay.
Yeah, so he actually
I guarantee
he
you,
got
Jeremy-
fired and come back as a new employee.
Yeah, Jeremy Anderson was on suicide watch, I'll bet you.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Oh, man.
Well, that's been years ago, so it was
Whoa.
before I knew him, but it was one of those to teach him a lesson kind of things, you know. Yeah. So Jake McVie, he's tuned in before. Says, what do you think about the one lug nut next year? I'm not a big fan of that. I just don't like taking away the history, the way things have been done. It's already bad enough they cutting back on the crew members and stuff, but I understand they're doing a lot of costs. I think that the way that they're doing it is kind of backwards. Like they're taking away things that they think cost money. Well, why not just bring more money in by increasing the interest in the sport?
Kind of like spend more money, make more money.
Yeah.
You spend money to make money kind of deal.
Yeah.
I understand that.
But anyway.
I don't think the one lug nut, they have to look at that from the standpoint. If they're looking at it from cost, you're going to tell me that those lug nut, those guns are less than the guns that they run now?
Yeah.
Less money? They got to be more.
I would think, yeah, because they're going to have to, they're going to have to turn that much more, not fast, but just have that much more leverage.
I mean, when are they going to – my thing is this. When is NASCAR going to go to a car that all four tires come off the ground?
Yeah, without a jack man.
A hydraulic jack.
Right.
Because then you can have the jack man. If they want to keep knocking down people, they're at 5 now.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you take away the jack man and the gas man. You have one guy runs a hose and a vent, just like they do in Indy.
Right.
And he's the jack man and the gas man.
Yeah.
So I don't.
Yeah.
I see that eventually going to that. If they're going to go to that one spanner nut, that one nut,
Yeah.
they're eventually going to go to a hydraulic jack system.
Right. And then they'll do the gas probably the same way they do instead of the big cans.
Here they'll have one big tank in the pits, and it'll just feed out of that. And they'll fill it up, and it'll be enough for the race.
Yep. Eventually, just have robots do it. I'm just saying. I don't know. So Dickie Dennis,
Probably will happen.
Hey, maybe yes.
Probably will happen.
Yeah. Dickie Dennis says, I believe in keeping it stock. What is it? Oh yeah, yeah. Speaking of surgeries, have you had any surgeries on your joints? Like I've had both my shoulders and my right knee done.
I have not. I feel like my shoulder needs to be something I've got going on with my shoulder, but I haven't had any surgeries yet.
Okay. Yeah.
But I have a lot of aches and pains, but I haven't had any surgeries.
Okay. I just knew it was a little bit hard on the body, and there was other things. I mean, working out a lot.
Oh, absolutely.
And then.
And now mowing grass.
Yeah.
That doesn't help at all.
Yeah.
It just adds to it.
I'll tell you what, these hot days are killer.
Oh, yeah, most
Gosh,
definitely.
Today I was.
Start early, end early.
Yeah. I come in here to do my radio show, and I'm like, it helps to have a little nap, but I didn't have any nap today because, I mean, the heat just zaps it out of you.
It does zap you.
And I think you can probably hear it in my voice on the radio. Tracy said my voice was sounding a little bit, I'm trying to talk and all this stuff going through my head and sponsors and all the things that I'm doing and running the board. And, Billy Buck's the owner of the station, and he's been doing it for 40 years. So he's the only other one that does the board and runs his show in the mornings. And which I've done whenever he's gone, I do the morning shows.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just a lot of different things. You got to have a good brain, and if the heat zaps it out.
Oh, absolutely. Then you just sit there in a daze.
I don't think I can get brain surgery, but
where were we?
Yes. So Rachel says, what is John's favorite memory about working at Robert Yates?
Oh man,
there's a lot.
There's a lot. Sure. I tell you, one of my favorite memories was when Ernie won at Michigan in '97. After he had his crash in '94 in Michigan and just about got killed.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
So to come back 2.5 years later from that and win at the track that almost took his life, I remember that. There was not a dry eye in victory lane. I mean, we were all. Ernie was crying. It was a special moment because Ernie just never thought that he would win again.
Yeah.
And especially at the track that took his life,
right.
About took his life. So that was a pretty special moment. But the one that's the the pinnacle is winning the championship. You know, being at Roberts, being a part of his only
99
championship, with DJ, that was that was very special.
Sure.
Robert had put in a lot of time for that, you know, so he definitely deserved it, and it was a special time around there.
Well, he had the elusive, I think it was 92 with Davey Allison when they lost that championship. And that was a big heartbreaker.
Yeah, and it's funny, it's because Ernie Irvin actually was the one that cost him that title.
Yes, he caused the wreck that ended up taking Davey out, and which was man, if you could just look back and not let Davey Allison get in that helicopter and all these things, you know, to look back and think how great he would have been. Yes, Chad Hatter says I cried. Chad's up in Ohio. He does some of the e-racing stuff. Yeah, so that's that was a. Oh, and then you're talking about Ernie winning that race, and Kim, and they're just great people, you know.
Yeah, they
great
are.
Family.
They are.
And Jared, their son's racing now, so they're following him and going to the track with him and all that kind of stuff. I asked Ernie one time, what is the difference between how you are, you know, how you were as a driver and how Jared is? And he basically, he said, well, Jared's got a little more sense than I had. He said, I was just out there and I was driving as hard as I could. I wasn't thinking about anything else. It's just, but he said, Jared thinks a lot more, you know, keeps his head on his straight, I guess.
Ernie had a level head on him, but Ernie wanted to see where his race car was very early. Like some drivers would drive 100 laps, you know, and say, okay, well, this is what we got, this is what we got. But then it was like a lot of times, you know, Ernie 30 laps into a race, he'd be like, okay, we need to do this. We need to put spring rubber in the right front. We need to drop the track bar, in 30 laps, because he had drove the car, you know, that hard. And Larry, you know, Mark Reno, all of them that were his crew chiefs when I was there, all would tell him, you know, take care of the brakes, you know, take care of the car, you know, and he would always say, you know, we run top equipment, you know, we run top stuff. My brakes better work, you know, kind of deal. And he just you know, at Richmond, Richmond, he was famous, you know, for the glowing rotors. Yeah. I mean, his rotors would be glowing at 40 laps into a race. But that was Ernie, you know, and you knew as a pit crew guy, you got excited. I mean, I had, you know, because you were like, all right. You know, when he would say, all right, we got us a hot rod here tonight. Yeah. You know, we just need to keep putting tires on it, we got us something tonight. And you already knew a 400 lap race, 30 laps in. And I don't know if he did that on purpose or whatever to get us pumped up, you know, but we would go, you know, all right, man, we've got us something that can win. And the morale would raise in the pits, you know, and of course you wanted to pit that car. You know, I've always said anybody could pit a race car running 30th 5 laps down. It's let me see what you got running in the top 5.
For sure, yes.
When the caution comes out and all those cars come down, let me see what you got then.
Right, yeah.
That shows who can step up and who can't.
Right, for sure. Because a lot of drivers too would be like, this, you know, all they do is whine and complain about how bad the car is, and they don't tell you anything to fix it. They're just mad that their car's not turning. This car is plowing like a freight train and just screaming over the radio. Yeah. Shut up. I don't want to hear anything else. And it's like, okay, well, how can we fix the car?
Yeah, Dale Jarrett did that. He didn't complain much at all about the race car. Yeah. You know? Ricky Rudd, he'd let you have it. Oh, yeah. I mean, he'd let you know real quick the entire time. Oh. I mean, he'd talk to you through the corners, in the corners, the whole time. Yeah. So it was I mean, like you know, you listen to a lot of people over the years, you know, driver wise, and they're all different. They all have different personalities. Yeah. You know, Ricky Rudd he didn't have a bad temper, but once you got his temper started, it was very, very hard to get him to calm down. Very hard to calm down. That's my phone.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So whenever Ricky, I actually asked Ricky if he wanted to call in whenever I had Bill Engel on here a few weeks ago.
Bill Engel.
Yeah, so I've had him on twice actually. This time in this studio and in the other studio we were in before. A lot of good stories. Great guy.
Yeah, Bill Engel, a very, very organized crew chief. Yeah, we were always the first or second person on the line.
That's what I was telling Bill. I was like, I remember that about you. I always seen you up there first. in the
And
inspection
he made
line.
it a point. He was the first in the garage area. He was the first. I mean, he got the premier parking spot in the paddock. I mean, if you were riding with him, you better be down in the lobby 25, 30 minutes before he ever even thought about leaving.
Yeah.
Because that's how Bill was.
Very disciplined.
But when Bill got the car on the line, we would have – some teams only had 30 minutes to eat, get changed in their fire suit. I mean, we had 3 hours to do whatever we want.
And that's nice because
I mean, it is nice.
we were the ones that were always later.
It is nice. I hate going through inspection last.
Yeah.
That's not good.
I know, right?
That's never good.
And so Dawn says, Dawn Clark, she's having her surgery tomorrow. So good luck to you on that, Dawn. She says, love the love for Ernie. He was something to watch. She used to be a scorer. She went to the track some.
Okay.
Yeah. She joins me in here too sometimes.
Okay.
She would be here tonight, but she's having to quarantine for her surgery tomorrow.
A lot of the scores, a lot of scores traveled with us too on the race day.
Sure did.
You know, most of them were women. But I wouldn't want their job. That job sucked.
Yes, that's for sure.
Scoring the cars, and there's people, you know, you had people up there smoking. That's back, you know, you could smoke in the scoring stand, and then you had some that couldn't smoke, didn't smoke. And, oh, man, I wouldn't want that job.
No, and
Rachel had a question. She wanted to know if you could work for anybody.
what driver would you work for if you could? What driver did you wish you could have worked with? Is what she said.
I'd have to say it'd be Dale Sr., Dale Earnhardt
Oh,
Sr.
yeah.
Yeah, if there was anybody that I would have loved to have just, you know, I had an opportunity to interact with him and had somewhat of a relationship with him. My sister knew him very well. So I kind of got to know him a little bit on a personal, note, but I would have loved to have been in a GM Good Wrench fire suit jacking his race car. That would have been pretty cool.
What is it, the Junkyard Gang or Junkyard? What was their?
Flying Aces.
Oh, that's right. Well, who was the? There was another. I've seen another picture.
Don't give me that look,
No,
man.
I've seen another one too, though. I've seen them called something else.
Did they see that look that you gave me? It is Flying Aces.
It is, but
What was you gonna say? The Junkyard Dogs or something?
it was something. Yeah, I know. And I'm telling you, I've seen it. There's a picture of them, and they're all kind of looks like they're hanging out at a junkyard, and that's what they called. This was before the Flying Aces.
Okay.
I'm not lying.
I'll roll with that.
Yeah.
I'll roll
And
with
if
that.
I'm wrong, I'll say it. But
Was that when Kirk Shermerdine was the crew chief?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah,
Man, you're going back.
I am going back.
Jeez.
Listen, I've been a NASCAR fan,
Go ahead, NASCAR.
since about 1975, 76. Because
That was a couple years before me. I started watching racing like in '79.
Okay, Daytona 500. The first time it was televised live was in 1979. And I remember watching it. I had the big console TV. It was broke, so we had our little TV on top. And I was standing in front of it. I was a Kel Yarborough fan. So I was just like, when that fight come on,
the Hardy's car.
yeah. I was like, man, I was just like, get him, get him, get him. So anyway, so that was that.
That was a famous fight, Donnie and Bobby and them, right?
Yes, it was.
That's right.
And I gotten to talk to Donnie and Bobby about it. We were hanging out over at Hud's place one time, and Donnie was there. So I just went over and sat with him, and he's telling story after story after story.
Oh, my goodness, man.
He likes telling stories.
Oh, yeah.
Who said that? Chad said, I felt it. Yeah, he said, I felt it. That's all good. So Dawn says they gave us ashtrays in the scorer's booth. Who could smoke when you had to watch your car? You couldn't watch the race, just your car. Yes. That's why it was such a difficult job. That would be.
Talk about boring.
Yes, boring.
Boring.
That's what I was.
I mean, think about 500 laps at Bristol, and the only car you can watch is yours.
Especially if it's not running up front. You know,
I
if
mean,
it's leading the race and it's like, oh,
and it
heck
was
yeah.
missing sheet metal in the front end. You got one arm like this, and you're just hitting the button.
Yes.
Every time it goes, yeah, this is great.
So, Earnhardt was bad about getting close in the pits because I remember jacking the car and going back. And when I went back, my right foot got run over, and it was Earnhardt cutting close to get into his pit, which, I mean, some pits were closer anyway. But that's my famous Earnhardt story. He ran over my foot. It didn't hurt, though.
Earnhardt gave us the finger in Rockingham one time.
Oh, yeah. The pit crew?
He gave us the pit crew. They were pitting behind us. Jeff Burton in the 99 XI car was in front of us.
Oh, yeah.
And we were down in the corner, in the curve down there.
Yeah.
And he was parked right behind us, and we were beating him in the pits all day. And he gave us the finger leaving the pits on the last. I just, the big glove coming out against his hair. I thought that was great.
That is funny. And then the other story with, and I don't know if you were jacking for Ricky Rudd then, but Ricky was cut it a little bit. When I went to run around the front of the car, I couldn't get by because Ricky's car was right there. So I just used his car to bounce the jack off the side of the car to push me around the front. It was perfect. It was perfect timing. I'm running. There it is. Boom. Run around the front.
Make it work.
That's right.
Make it work.
But I was a right-handed jack man, so that worked for me. If it were you, it wouldn't have worked that good.
Yeah.
But I've gotten so close to the front of the hood that the hood pin, I could knock the hood pins out with my hips.
I've done that. I've tore my knee pad on the front grill before because I've scraped up against the front and ripped my knee pad before. I didn't mean to do it, but I did.
You ever slip on any brake dust?
Oh, I've slipped on many lug nuts.
Yeah, that too.
And the infamous front tire changer's hose. I'm always was looking for that.
Oh, of course, yes. And then you'd have a guy behind the wall sort of trying to flip it or whatever, but
if he didn't pull it straight, you were in trouble.
And if he pulled it at the wrong time, then you're going to trip over it.
Yeah.
Jake McVie says, I attended the All-Star race at Bristol. They need the fan zone to come back for real soon. The fan zone. All-Star race at Bristol.
They need the fans, period.
Yeah.
I think it's very surreal to watch them win a race and then get out at the start-finish line, and it's just very quiet. It's eerie.
Yeah, isn't it?
But I actually think they need to have the All-Star race at Bristol all the time. I thought it was a pretty good race.
Yeah.
I mean, when they have those little stages like the 25 and the 45 laps, I mean, they're doing 45 laps there in 15, 20 minutes.
They could just add another one, Why not?
Do
just have
2
another.
All-Star races?
Yeah, because the All-Star race, I always loved going to that at Charlotte. That was the race I went to every time because it's not – I mean, you're there a long time, but the race isn't very long, obviously.
Right.
I was there whenever Davey Allison and Kyle Petty got into that wreck on the last lap, 92.
That was 92?
I think it was the first one hot night, the first race.
That was 92.
The moon's always out, those races, and the weather's usually perfect. The year before, I was there when I think Davey Allison pretty much just led every lap of the race, and it was a little drizzly that day. But I always went to the All-Star race. And I always enjoyed it.
I always enjoyed it because I always knew that the next weekend it was going to be 600 miles.
Oh, yeah.
We were going to be there for a while.
Oh, my gosh. That and Dover, the 500 miles.
Oh, my goodness, man. Those things would just wear me out, especially at Dover before they did the crossover.
Yes.
If you fell out in lap 80, you just sat there in your hauler for 420 miles for 420 laps because you couldn't leave.
Is that before they did the cat cones?
Yeah, the
walkover?
Yeah, you couldn't.
Okay.
The only way over was the backstretch, and you had to drive over the backstretch back then.
Oh, okay. So I remember. I was when I started going out with that was already there. That walkover, catcomb, whatever you call it. But I remember being at Martinsville and Earnhardt. All right, so they were waiting to call the race for rain, and I remember seeing him. He was already in his street clothes, ready to go with his umbrella, because you couldn't,
Well, then you could go ahead and pack up your stuff.
That's what we always knew. When Earnhardt knew, then you knew that.
Do you remember when? It was real cold? The first, I think it was like 98, 99, the first Atlanta race when we used to race in March.
Yeah.
It was like the third race after the Daytona 500. It was Daytona, and then it was something, and then we went to Atlanta.
Yeah.
I remember. You remember it? I always remember because it was cold and drizzly all day, and it rained all day, and we didn't get to start. They were going to start racing like at 4:00 that afternoon, and Dale had gone into the hauler, and he said, "Well, I can tell you if y'all race tomorrow." Because they were going to postpone it till I won't be here.
Oh.
and they were like, what do you mean you won't be here? And he said, well, Richard and I will be in Montana hunting something. He said, so we've already had this plan.
Yeah.
And literally they raced that night. Yeah. We had been there since 6:30 that morning, and I remember leaving that night with an engine in the van out of our car. It was still hot because we got done at midnight, and they put it in the van, and I drove it all the way home. And Doug was already there and met me when I got there. He had already flew home and was at the shop and helped me unload the engine when I got there.
How about that?
Crazy. I'll never forget that as long as I live, how long of a day that was. And I was driving home. I felt sick driving home from Atlanta all the way home, and it was drizzling rain. Oh, and I had that engine, so I just knew if anything happened to that, I was going to lose my job.
Oh, my
I mean, I
gosh.
could have wrecked the van and flipped it over and killed everybody in it. As long as the engine was okay, I'd have been fine.
Oh, I'm sure, yes. I remember getting back from Bristol at like 5:30 in the morning. We got back.
Oh man, those are just, people don't realize. I mean, there was a lot of fun to it, and then we had a lot of fun going up and down the road. When I started, we were driving to a lot of races before the race day express started flying to them. So we were driving to Richmond and to Pocono, and when you have 8 or 10 guys in a Econoline van. Yeah. There's a lot of story. There's a lot of lies told up and down the road, and you get to. I think that's one way that a lot of people were able to become so close and such like family, that we were really together all the time. You traveled together, you lived together in the hotels, you worked together 12 hours a day in the garage, side by side.
Yeah.
There was no social distancing. No one worked over here and over here. You were right beside each other, handing each other tools, getting each other rags, cleaning up somebody's mess. I enjoyed that.
And look back now to the guys, and I'll try to go see guys every once in a while, but it's almost like you were in the military together.
Absolutely.
It just has that same feeling, like your brothers.
Yeah, everything. We folded the tarps the same way, because if you didn't fold them the same, they'd never go in the pit box.
Right.
Everything had to be exactly the way it. And I learned a lot. I do a lot of stuff in my business, systems-wise, the same way every time because of racing. Yeah. Robert always says, if it works, it works. If it's broke, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right. Yeah.
If the system works, don't change it.
And the truck drivers were very peculiar because everything had to fit. And it's like you look at these campers now where they got everything kind of tucked away, and you have to, well, that's the way the trucks were. I mean, everything had to fit just right, because at the end of the race, you're going to push the pit box in. It's got to go in first.
And it's got to go. This has got to go first.
Box
and then
has to go. The gas cans and all that.
We always put our toolbox was very first, because you could go in the side door if you need to get tools. Right. And that's why we put it, because you could get to it. You could open the top and use all the slide outs. So if something happened, Tommy would always do that, because if something happened on the road, he could pull over a truck stop. He didn't have to unload his whole truck to get to his tools.
Right. Yeah. True.
They were very smart. I mean, they had $2 or $3 million rolling down the road. They had to be on their toes. For
sure, yeah. Jake McVie asks, any good pit road fights? I remember one time, I think it was at Richmond, we were thinking about it, and somebody said something about the Yates guys, and I was like, those guys, they were all big guys. You had Big E, and you had Jeff Clark, and
Daryl Ferguson. You had a lot of big boys.
Yeah.
A lot of big guys.
But other than that, I don't know. We were all kind of like
never
brothers.
Really got into. We've gotten to some shouting matches before. I've got into it with a couple of guys, only because they came into our pits. Robert always says, if somebody comes in our yard, you protect your yard. Yeah. But don't go outside your yard. And start something. And that was just kind of. One time somebody tried to get to Ricky and tried to hit him in the car while we were pitting. Oh, man. And they were standing right there on the left side of the car, and I had to remove that person to get to jack the car up. And then after the car left, there was a confrontation there. Oh, okay. But they were
in your yard.
Yeah, but it never escalated to anything, after that.
What was your favorite track?
My favorite track, man. It'd probably. Well, I'll just plug for Tennessee. Being from Tennessee, being a Tennessee boy, I'd have to say Bristol. There was a lot of excitement. I loved racing there on Saturday nights. It was just the energy there, and you had 100 and something thousand people packed into a half mile. It was just a lot of people don't get to experience that now. I mean, I that's what I enjoyed about racing, is when people came to the races, and people, there were people everywhere. Yeah. I mean, it took you 3, 4, 5 hours to get out of a half-mile racetrack. Yeah. there's a lot of people there.
Oh yeah.
You know,
I remember looking at Bristol, like thinking, I don't think they could put stands. We were just trying to figure out where they could, because it was packed. Like every seat was taken. And I was thinking they could put seats there, and eventually they did. And now they're taking them back out.
Sure.
I had a question about Rob Moroso. Whenever you, I know your sister was dating him, and so Scott was telling me, and maybe he's just made this up because Scott says stuff a lot of times, but he said that Rob was going to put you in a car.
Well, there had been talk about that. Yeah, we at the time the Daytona Dash Series, you know, was around, and that was kind of like the beginner. I don't know. It was under ARCA, you know. It was so it was kind of like a very beginner. They only raced at big tracks, you know, like Michigan, and so they didn't race at any small tracks. And we were going to try to do that. You know, Dick's dad had Moroso Racing and was going to try to put something together, you know, in my name. Of course, you know, with Debbie dating Rob, you know, it fell into the hat. You know, a couple of people were getting involved. Michael Waltrip, you know, was one of Rob's best friends. Lived down the street from him at the time. You know, Chuck Ryder, which owned Bahari Racing. You know, it was kind of all of those people. Barry Dotson, that's not around anymore. He was he lived right around the corner. He was going to be involved in it in some way. I don't know how, but but there was talks about it. Yeah, it sure was. So yeah, I think from time to time, what, you know, could have been or should have been or maybe, but you know, stuff happens for a reason. So
yeah, for sure.
I'm where I need to be.
Yeah. Well, who knows? You might have ended up getting injured.
You're right. Exactly. I mean, I look at that a lot. You know,
I saw Barry Dodson. Probably a year before he passed away. I saw him down at the Taco Bell in Mooresville, and when I first saw him, I was like, I didn't recognize it first. And then he looks over at me, and he's like, he's come up to me, and he's like, "Hey man, how you doing?" You know, he said it's so good to see you. I mean, he just seemed like he was just genuine Barry Dodson. Yeah,
I think Barry, you know, when Tia and Trey got killed, everything, of course, changed in his world, and I don't ever think that, you know, he had his good days and his good weeks, but I don't think Barry ever really got back that zest for life. You know, I really don't. I could just, that little sparkle in his eye. I worked with him briefly at Rusty Wallace. It was a Bush car, the 66 Duraflame car when Rusty first started his Bush shop. Had Billy Parker, Hank Parker's brother. My little brother was driving at the time. So I got to be around Barry. Barry was a crew chief, general manager, you know, crew chief type deal over there. And that was after I left Roberts, and that was in 2004. And it just seemed like he had kind of lost that twinkle. You know, Debbie used to work with Barry at Team 3 Racing when Mickey Gibbs used to be the driver a long time ago. I think was his name. Mickey Gibbs.
That sounds familiar. Very familiar.
And it was a 24 car at the time. That was their number. And Bobby Kennedy. I remember Bobby Kennedy worked there. Barry Dodson worked there. Debbie worked in the office, you know, answering the phones and stuff like that.
I didn't know that.
So that was.
I know Bobby's got him a restaurant, right?
Yeah, Denver Smokehouse.
Yeah, I'll have to go see him sometime.
Yeah, that's good. Very good.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, Barry's. My very first interview in racing was with Jeff Hammond, and then my second was with Barry Dodson, and then that's basically when I ended up getting hired to that team, and it was right after Tia and Trey had died. So, he was. Yeah.
Yeah, that was bad stuff there.
Yeah. But does anybody else have any more questions? Because we're going to wrap it up. We've already been an hour and 15 minutes in.
Oh, I didn't even realize.
Man, we could talk all night, though. I mean, that's
wow, I didn't even realize it was 8:42.
Yeah, about that.
It's past my bedtime.
Boy,
it's past my bedtime, man.
One of these days, I'm going to have to get Brad Parrott in here.
Gosh.
He just lives right down the road.
Oh, my gosh, man.
I mean, like, he's, I don't know, 5 miles from here, I think, something like that. So
do not schedule Brad Parrott and I. If you put Brad Parrott and I and Joey Knuckles all in here at the same time.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes, I could see that.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
do the 11 o'clock show and do it R-rated, and it'd be some serious stories.
Yeah. Oh, now, yeah,
Some
we could
serious stories.
We could do some podcasting with that.
Like racing down the hallways in the hotel rooms.
Yes.
I could just go on and on. It was good times.
Dickie's asking, how do you feel about the fence climbers? Now, we were going to have a fence climber called in. I don't know what happened there, Dickie. You're going to set that up for me, but my light hasn't flashed at all here. So anyway, he said, how do you feel about the fence climbers? They're crazy.
I think it's cool. I would have loved to have been able to climb the fence, you know, at the brickyard or anything. For some reason, I guess my drivers that I worked with, they weren't into climbing fences. So.
Well, he's talking about as a fan, I think, because he was the one in Richmond in 2014 that climbed up on top of the fence.
Okay.
He was up there while they were racing, and Alan Bestwick called him an idiot or something like that. It was just
Alan Bestwick.
Yeah, on TV he was pretty mad about that.
Well, everybody, to each his own.
Oh, well, here comes a phone call. If you got a few minutes, we'll just knock this out because we've got a phone call coming in from the new fence climber. Hey there. Is this Kellen?
Hi, I am the fence climber. I was calling to the show.
Hey, what's up? Is this Kellen?
Yes, sir.
That's how you say your name?
Kellen Robeson.
Kellen Robeson. Okay. Oh, I saw you tuned in here just a minute ago. I wasn't sure that was you. So I guess you've been talking to Dickie Dennis, which is your fellow fence climber. So tell us your story about how you decided, where were you at, and how you decided to climb up on that fence.
I was in Bristol, and I was overwhelmed with Chase winning. I was just overcome with emotion. I actually saw Chase win the Roval, and me and my son love Chase. We're big fans.
Okay. Well, I'd say that's a good way to commemorate his win.
Yes, sir. It was, I didn't plan it. It just happened.
It just happened. So that must mean there must have been some beer involved.
Yeah, it was. It was a lot of beer involved.
So did you tell somebody to hold my beer?
No, actually, my girlfriend. Yeah, I did. I set it down in front of the fence by the yellow line.
Oh my gosh!
And I can't miss a Chase Elliott burnout. I just can't. And I couldn't see him, so I was like, just climb up the fence and look. And I didn't expect all of that to happen. I really want to apologize to Bristol Motor Speedway because I know that wasn't maybe a good look, but I just got out of hand.
You didn't get in trouble, right?
No, sir, I didn't get in trouble. Thank God.
I know, right? That's great. So, is she still your girlfriend?
Yes, sir.
Well, then
yes, sir. She still is.
You should have climbed up there and asked her to marry you right then, if she's sick with you.
Oh, I wish. That would have been great. I wish.
Yes. So do you live up near Bristol?
No, sir. Actually, I live in Kannapolis, North Carolina. I stay maybe 2 minutes away from Ralph Earnhardt's grave.
Oh, okay. So you're from there now.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir. Ralph and my grandfather were actually good friends.
Oh, very cool. We'll have to
yes, sir.
Get you to drive over to Statesville sometime. Come in and hang out with us.
Oh, of course, most definitely. I would love the opportunity to do that.
So when you climbed up here, how did you get down?
Oh, I climbed down. I saw a sheriff coming. I was like, yeah, it's time to get down. I don't want to get in trouble or get anybody in no trouble.
Well, that's funny, man.
But
that's
it was really awesome just to be there. That was my first time going to Bristol, and I love the racetrack. The last great Coliseum.
Oh, yes, that's right. You just couldn't contain your excitement.
Oh, no, I couldn't. I couldn't.
Because, Dickie Dennis got banned for life from any racetrack in Virginia, I believe it was. Well, any NASCAR.
I heard.
NASCAR track.
I honestly hope they can change it.
Yeah.
Because NASCAR, I suffered a lot of backlash, which wasn't, it is what it is. But, that's why, that was one reason I apologize for it.
Yeah. Well, the way you climbed up, it wasn't like you were putting anybody's safety. I mean, really even yours, because when Dickie was on there, he was at like the very top where it curves over onto the track. Like he could have just jumped right down on a car at any time, which was pretty crazy, I would say. But you were kind of like up there where everybody in the place could see you, which is commendable.
Yes, sir. And then the same time, the cars were going down pit road too. So
Yeah.
I didn't want to do anything dangerous, or I didn't want to pull no stunts like that.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I did see a video
Yes,
on Facebook, and I saw it had like I don't know, it's around 60,000 views or something. I don't know. It was.
Oh, it's actually at I want to say a little bit over 100,000 now.
Oh wow, it's
Yes, sir. I didn't want to do anything.
Very cool, man. Well, that was great. Thanks so much for calling in, and we'll have to get you in here sometime. You can tell us your story.
Okay, that would be great. And I love the show. I've learned a lot from the pit crew. Like looking at it, I learned it's racing from a different side, because people don't really see they don't pay attention to the pit crew, and them guys really work their butts off.
Yeah.
And I commend them. Like Chase's chief, Gustafson, they do a good job. They get cars in and get them out. They even going through the pit, you move up 2 or 3 spots. So I commend you guys for that too.
Yeah, and Alan Gustafson's.
I don't get enough credit.
He's been around a long time. A lot of those guys that are still going back from whenever we were going, I'm like, how are they doing this? Still going, But yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it's rough, because
Yes.
I heard you talk about your shoulder, so I'm sure it's really rough
Yes.
on the body.
Yeah,
Yes,
it can
sir.
be for sure. All right, buddy. Well, thanks so much for calling in, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
All right, buddy. You too. Bye-bye.
Yes, sir. Bye.
How about that? Very cool.
That was cool.
Yeah. His name is Kellen. So
Kellen
was
Robinson.
Robinson. That's right. Yeah.
Robinson? Robinson.
I think it's Robinson.
Robinson.
Oh, Robinson.
Robinson?
Well, it sounded like he said Robinson. But anyway, he's in Kannapolis.
Kannapolis,
So
North
he's
Carolina.
basically a local feller right here, not too far from us. Well, John, it's time to wrap it up.
Wrap it up.
Yeah, buddy. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hey,
And
man. I appreciate you having me.
Come back anytime.
I sure will. I'll be here tomorrow.
I was going to say.
I'm just kidding.
I was about to say, I'll see you next week, but
I'll be here tomorrow.
Well, finally, Paul Rodriguez joined us. He'll go back and watch, I'm sure, but he might have been looking. He's in Port St. Lucie, Florida, down there. John.
Oh,
Paul
okay.
is.
My wife is from the Tampa area, so
Oh, that's right. Down around. We could talk about that stuff for a while too.
yeah, it's another show.
About all the racing and stuff going on.
We'll do that
down
one
in there.
tomorrow. We'll do a Florida show tomorrow.
Yeah. So, all right. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and don't forget to hit see DHamIam on Twitter, Instagram, DHamIam.com to get links to all the social media and such. So, and we will see y'all next Monday evening. And yeah, hit that like button. Please hit that like, and make some comments on here. If you got any more questions, go on after the show, and you can go on and ask questions, and that'd be great. So, and I'll answer them. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see y'all next time.
My sister said that she was a scorer.